The day I bought the Grand Marina Hotel, everyone thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. The once elegant riverside property was hemorrhaging money, the reviews were terrible, and the staff was demoralized. But Grace Chen, my mentor of 15 years, had believed in me enough to make me promise I'd buy it when she was gone. I'm Julia Martinez, 34, and until 3 months ago, I was the successful manager of the luxurious Riverside Royale Hotel. Now I'm the owner of what local newspapers kindly call a historic property in need of restoration. Less kind people call it a money pit. You're throwing away your career, my former boss, Richard Sterling, told me when I resigned. Grace Chen was a stubborn old woman who refused to adapt to modern hospitality standards. That hotel is going to drag you down with it. But Richard didn't know Grace like I did. She'd hired me as a housekeeper when I was 19, putting myself through hotel management school. She'd spotted something in me, mentored me, taught me everything she knew about running a hotel with both efficiency and heart. Hotels aren't just buildings, Julia, she'd often say, her eyes twinkling. They're theaters where life's most important moments play out. Weddings, reunions, farewells, new beginnings. We're the caretakers of people's memories. The last time I saw her, 2 days before cancer took her, she'd made me promise 2 things: to buy the Grand Marina when it went up for sale and to never, under any circumstances, sell it to the Riverside Hotel chain. No matter what they offer, she'd insisted, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so ill. The documents in my office safe will explain everything. The combination is your birthday. I promised, not knowing that within months, I'd be selling my condo, emptying my savings, and taking out a substantial loan to keep that promise. The purchase price was lower than I'd expected. Grace's children had no interest in running a hotel and just wanted to settle the estate quickly. But the renovation costs were staggering. Walking through the hotel on my first day as owner, I could see why business had declined. The once grand lobby's marble floors were dulled with age, the vintage chandeliers needed rewiring, and the famous Riverside restaurant was operating at a fraction of its capacity. But underneath the wear and neglect, the bones of the place were still magnificent. Soaring ceilings, intricate woodwork, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. They didn't build hotels like this anymore. Mrs. Martinez? A tentative voice interrupted my assessment. Maria Garcia, the head housekeeper who'd worked for Grace for 20 years, stood nervously nearby. The staff, we were wondering about our jobs. I smiled, remembering how Grace had always said the staff was a hotel's heart. Your jobs are secure, Maria. In fact, I'm going to need everyone's help to restore this place to its former glory. The relief on her face was palpable, but something else flickered in her eyes. Worry? Fear? Before I could ask, she hurried away to share the news with the rest of the staff. I made my way to Grace's office, my office now, taking in the elegant old desk, the wall of photos showing the hotel through the decades, the vintage safe set into the wall behind a painting of the river. My birthday released the locking mechanism exactly as Grace had said. Inside were several folders, a USB drive, and an envelope with my name on it. But before I could examine them, my phone rang. Richard Sterling. Julia, my dear, his voice oozed false concern. I've just heard about your investment. I felt I should warn you that Riverside Hotels is planning a major expansion. The Grand Marina's location would be perfect for our new luxury project. My hand tightened on the phone. The hotel's not for sale, Richard. Don't be hasty. The property's value is mainly in the land and location. That old building is more liability than asset. We're prepared to make a very generous offer, say 3 times what you paid. The amount he named would clear my loans and set me up for life. But Grace's warning rang in my ears. Still not interested, I said firmly. Julia, his voice hardened. That hotel is going to bankrupt you. When it does, and believe me, it will, our offer won't be nearly so generous. Think about it. After he hung up, I sat at Grace's desk, trying to calm my racing heart. Richard Sterling had been trying to buy the Grand Marina for years. Grace had always refused to sell, even when business was at its worst. I opened the envelope with my name on it, and Grace's familiar handwriting filled the page. My dearest Julia, if you're reading this, you've kept your promise to buy the hotel. Thank you. I know it seems like an impossible task right now, but you need to understand why keeping the Grand Marina out of Riverside's hands is so important. What you'll find in these files isn't just the hotel's history. It's evidence of something Richard Sterling has been trying to bury for 30 years. Something that would destroy not just him, but the entire Riverside Hotel's empire. Start with the blue folder. Everything will make sense then. Be careful who you trust. Some of our current staff were planted by Sterling years ago. They've been reporting to him, waiting for me to die so he could swoop in and buy the hotel before anyone discovered the truth. You're stronger than you know, Julia. I chose you as my successor not just because you're brilliant at hospitality, but because you have the courage to face what's coming. The hotel is your armor. The evidence in these files is your sword. Use them wisely. All my love, Grace. My hands shook as I opened the blue folder. News clippings from 1993, police reports, financial documents, and photographs spilled out. As I read, my blood ran cold. Because what Grace had uncovered about Richard Sterling and the origins of his hotel empire was worse than anything I could have imagined. But before I could process it all, a knock at my office door made me look up. Thomas Fuller, our longtime maintenance manager, stood there with an odd expression. "Everything okay, Mrs. Martinez?" Some of us noticed Mr. Sterling called. Something in his tone made me remember Grace's warning about planted staff. How long had Thomas worked here? I tried to recall, but the dates were fuzzy. "Just a courtesy call," I said carefully, casually sliding the folders back into the safe. "Welcoming me to the industry." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on the safe for a moment too long. After you left, I sat in Grace's chair, my mind racing. I wasn't just fighting to save a historic hotel anymore. I was fighting to expose a truth that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. But what I didn't know yet was that the real danger wasn't just from Richard Sterling or his spies. Because what Grace had discovered went far beyond hotel industry corruption. It reached into the highest levels of city government, and some of those people were still in power today. That night, after everyone had gone home, I carefully reviewed everything in Grace's safe. The story that emerged from those decades-old documents was staggering. In 1993, the Grand Marina had been one of 5 historic riverside hotels in the city. All independently owned, all successful, all suddenly hit with a series of mysterious accidents and health code violations. Within 18 months, 4 of them had been forced to sell to a new company, Riverside Hotels, founded by a young Richard Sterling. But the Grand Marina's owner at the time, Grace's late husband Henry Chen, had been suspicious. He'd hired a private investigator who uncovered evidence that Sterling had bribed health inspectors, paid people to plant vermin in the hotels, and even orchestrated accidents that damaged property and injured guests. More damning still were the documents showing that Sterling's initial capital had come from Marcus Reynolds, then the city's building commissioner. Reynolds had used his position to deny renovation permits to the targeted hotels while fast-tracking approvals for Sterling's company. The private investigator had compiled everything into a damning report. But the night before he was supposed to meet with federal authorities, he died in what was ruled a car accident. Henry Chen died 3 months later. Another accident, a fall down the hotel's service stairs. Grace had inherited the hotel and all the evidence, but she'd been smart. Instead of going public immediately, she'd spent years gathering more proof, building a bulletproof case while pretending to be nothing more than a stubborn old woman who refused to sell her outdated hotel. The USB drive contained recent evidence, emails between Sterling and current city officials, proof that he was still using the same tactics to acquire properties, records of offshore accounts used to hide bribes and payoffs. But the most shocking discovery was a series of photographs from the night Henry Chen died. Security camera stills showing Thomas Fuller, much younger but unmistakably him, on the service stairs just before Henry's fatal fall. I sat back, my mind reeling. Our maintenance manager wasn't just Sterling's spy. He was potentially a murderer. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring all files from safe. No police or press or accident reports from 1993 go public. Your choice." They knew about the safe, which meant Thomas must have called Sterling as soon as he saw me accessing it. I had to think like Grace. She'd survived 30 years keeping this evidence safe, playing a long game while building her case. What would she do? The answer came to me as I looked at her wall of hotel photos. In one from 1995, Grace stood proudly in front of the newly renovated Riverside restaurant, which had been closed for months after a mysterious kitchen fire. I pulled out my phone and called Maria Garcia. "Mrs. Martinez?" She answered immediately, despite the late hour. "Is everything all right?" "Maria, how long have you worked here?" 23 years. Since just after Mr. Chen died." "Mrs. Chen. Grace, she saved me, gave me a job when," she paused. "There's something you need to know." An hour later, I had the full story. Maria had been a maid at one of the other hotels Sterling had acquired. She'd witnessed one of the stage accidents but had been too afraid to come forward. Grace had hired her, protected her, and kept her statement safe all these years. There were others, Maria told me. Former staff from all the hotels Grace bought over the years. She gave us jobs, kept us close, kept us safe until the right time came. I spent the next few hours making calls. By morning, I had statements from 15 former employees of hotels Sterling had acquired, all with similar stories of orchestrated accidents and sabotage. At 9:45 a.m., I walked into the hotel's grand ballroom. Thomas Fuller was there with two men I didn't recognize, probably Sterling's lawyers. "The files?" Thomas demanded. "Right here." I held up a USB drive. "But first, I think we should wait for the other guests." "What other?" The ballroom doors opened. Maria led in a group of people, former hotel employees, all carrying folders. Behind them came a team from the FBI's Public Corruption Unit led by an agent who'd been very interested in my early morning call. Thomas Fuller, the lead agent, announced, "You're under arrest for the murder of Henry Chen and conspiracy to commit fraud." As they led Thomas away, Richard Sterling himself burst into the ballroom, his face purple with rage. "Whatever you think you're doing," he blustered, "you have no proof." "Actually," I cut him off, "we have 30 years of proof. Grace Chen spent 3 decades building an airtight case against you. Every bribe, every stage accident, every corrupt deal. And more importantly, she spent those years protecting the witnesses you thought you'd scared into silence." I gestured to the group of former employees. "These people all worked at hotels you destroyed. Hotels you acquired through sabotage and murder. They're all here to testify." Sterling's face went from purple to ash gray. "You'll regret this." He tried to sound threatening, but his voice shook. "I have friends in city government, like Commissioner Reynolds." I smiled. "Check your phone, Mr. Sterling. The story's already breaking on every news channel in the city." The investigation that followed shook the city to its foundations. Sterling and 3 current city officials were indicted on multiple charges. The Riverside hotel chain collapsed as evidence of decades of corruption came to light. But the Grand Marina, we didn't just survive, we thrived. The publicity from the case brought attention to our historic property. Grace's carefully preserved evidence didn't just bring down Sterling's empire. It proved that our hotel had been targeted because of its success and Henry Chen's integrity. We used the settlement money from Sterling's seized assets to completely restore the property. Every chandelier was rewired, every marble floor restored to its original glory. The Riverside restaurant became the hottest reservation in town. More importantly, we preserved the heart of the hotel, the staff Grace had protected all those years. Their stories became part of our legacy, a testament to one woman's courage and foresight. 1 year after Sterling's arrest, I stood in the renovated ballroom, hosting a memorial gala for Grace and Henry Chen. The mayor, the new one, elected after the corruption scandal, presented a proclamation declaring the Grand Marina an official city landmark. Maria found me later on the Riverside terrace, watching the sunset paint the water gold. "Grace would be so proud," she said softly, "not just of the hotel, but of how you handled everything. You're like her, you see the long game." I touched the jade pendant Grace had left me in her will. She taught me that success isn't just about business. It's about protecting what matters: people, principles, truth. Last week, a young woman applied for a housekeeping position. Something in her determination reminded me of myself 15 years ago. I hired her on the spot and added hotel management training to her job description. Because that's what Grace would have done. In her memory, the Grand Marina isn't just a hotel anymore. It's a legacy of justice, a symbol of standing up to corruption, and a place where new stories can safely begin. Yesterday, I found a note Grace had tucked into an old guest book. "Remember Julia, Hotels are more than buildings. They're repositories of truth, witnesses to history. The Grand Marina saw corruption and survived it. Now it stands as a testament to the power of patience, courage, and playing a long game. Keep its stories safe. Keep its people safer. And never stop believing in the triumph of truth over greed. I've hung the note in my office, next to the wall of photos chronicling our hotel's history. There's plenty of room for new pictures, new stories, new triumphs. Because Grace was right, hotels aren't just buildings. They're theaters where life's most important moments play out. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, they're also places where justice finally finds its stage.